Hey guys, let's read one more good story before we stop this year. How about it? So we finish up this year. I want to read one more story with you, and this one's a biography we'll look at in a minute. It's a really neat story as we finish up Module 9 as well. We're going to look at our vocabulary words to go along with this story today, and there's 7, and you'll have an assignment on them tomorrow. But let's go ahead and take a look at our words for today. The first one is ancestors. Your ancestors are the people in your family who lived long ago. My ancestors came from Germany, Ireland, and Africa. Where did your ancestors come from? You might want to ask your parents. Ask your great-grandparents if they're still living. Ask your grandparents, where is our family from? Where are our ancestors from? It's the people in your family who lived long ago. Swirled. If something's swirled, it's moved quickly around in circles. Looking down at the swirling water made me dizzy. I'd like to get on a water slide, wouldn't you, and swirl down it into a big pool? That would feel pretty good right now. Going around in circles quickly. It's swirled. Currents. Currents are flowing movements of water in a lake, river, or ocean. Our boat sped down the river with a swift current. Well, I like to get out in the ocean. Are you going to the beach this summer? Maybe so. Watch out for those currents. A lot of times I'll walk out into the water and I'll face the land and look for my wife. She likes to lay in the sun. I like to get in the water and stay cool, but that current will push me sideways. And if I'm not careful and looking where I am, I'll be 100 yards down the beach and not even realize it because the current pushed me that way. It's flowing movements of water. Sneered. If you sneered at something, you show disapproval and lack of respect by the look on your face. She hoped she would like her idea, but she hoped he would like her idea, but he only sneered. Yeah, that doesn't feel good when you say something and somebody goes, like that. They sneer, like they don't like what you said. It's a show of disapproval, a lack of respect. Don't sneer at your teacher. You'll get in trouble if you do that. Outspoken. If you're outspoken, you say what you think, even when others do not agree. But being outspoken can get you into trouble. Sometimes people just speak their minds. They say things even if it's not nice because they're outspoken. Be careful about that. It's okay to tell the truth. We should always tell the truth, but sometimes the truth, it hurts somebody's feelings if they say, "Do you like this dress?" and you say, "No, that's ugly." So don't be so outspoken that you hurt somebody's feelings. Canopy. A canopy is a roof-like covering, like the top branches of trees in a forest. The canopy of trees give us shade from the hot sun. Think about where monkeys like to jump around, the canopy, all the branches and leaves of the trees. Last word is envision. If you envision something, you picture it with your mind. I envision my life the way I hope it will be someday. Can you envision school being over? I know you can because it's not that far away. Envision it. Picture it in your mind. We're almost finished with this crazy, crazy school year. But I'll miss you. Even though we've just been virtual, I feel like I know every one of you really well, and I'll miss you when this year's over. Well, let's look at our story that these words are going to be in. And it's a biography, like I said. This is a story about a real person's life written by somebody else. The person the story is about didn't write the story. Somebody else wrote it about her in this story. Authors of biographies present events in sequential or chronological order. Authors of biographies may use literary language and devices to present major events in a person's life. Biographies include third-person pronouns. So it's written from a third-person point of view because it's somebody writing about somebody else. Third-person pronouns like he, she, him, her, his, hers, they, them, and their. This biography is called Seeds of Change. Seeds of Change. So as we look at the title, we can see it's very colorful, isn't it? It's a very colorful story. The illustrations in it are really neat. It looks like probably by this person's clothing that it's probably not going to take place in the United States. As a matter of fact, it doesn't because I've already read this story, I know. So we can infer some things from this. Wonder what the seeds of change are. It's a story by Jen Cullerton Johnston, illustrated by Sonia Lynn Sadler. And this begins on page 279 in your reading book. So I'd like for you to grab it and read along with me. Seeds of Change. Let me shrink myself just a little bit here. There we go. And we've got some words and names in the story that are kind of tough because this story takes place in Africa. Come, Wangari's mother called. She beckoned her young daughter over to a tall tree with a wide, smooth trunk and a crown of green oval leaves. Feel, her mother whispered. Wangari spread her small hands over the tree's trunk. She smoothed her fingers over the rough bark. This is the magumo, her mother said. It's home to many. It feeds many, too. She snapped off a wild fig from a low branch and gave it to her daughter. Wangari ate the delicious fruit just as geckos and elephants did. High in the tree, birds chirped in their nests. The branches bounced with jumping monkeys. Our people, the Kikuyu of Kenya, believe that our ancestors rest in the tree's shade, her mother explained. Wangari wrapped her arms around the trunk as if hugging her great-grandmother's spirit. She promised never to cut down the tree. Each year, the Magumo grew, and so did Wangari. As the oldest girl in her family, she had many chores. Every day she fetched water, clear and sweet, from the river. In the rainy season, she planted sweet potatoes, millet, and beans. When the sun shone brightly in the dry season, she shooed the chickens into the shade. Sometimes when her brother Deritu returned from school, he and Wangari played among the arrowroot plants by the stream, where thousands of eggs hatched into tadpoles, and tadpoles turned into frogs. During those times, Deritu told Wangari what he had learned in his classes. Plants give air for people to breathe. Hey, we learned that too, didn't we? He said, 20 divided by 2 is 10. There are 7 great seas to sail. Wangari listened as still as a tree, but her mind swirled with curiosity, like the currents in the stream. Even though she knew few Kikuyu girls who could read, Wangari dreamed of going to school and learning, just like her brother. I must go to school, she told him. You will, he promised. Deritu talked to their parents. Why doesn't Wangari go to school, he asked. Wangari's parents knew she was smart and a hard worker. Although it was unusual for a girl to be educated, they decided to send her to school. They knew she would not disappoint them. After some time to arrange for fees and supplies, Wangari's mother came to her. You are going to school, she told her daughter. That was a big deal for her to go to school in Africa because girls didn't usually go to school. And did you notice what else? She had to pay fees and supplies. You get to go to school for free. And the school supplies your textbooks, but she has to pay all that. So it was a big deal for her to go. Wangari grinned widely and hugged her mother. Thank you, she cried. I will make you proud. Wangari walked the long road to a one-room schoolhouse with walls made of mud, a floor of dirt, and a roof of tin. In time, she learned to copy her letters and trace numbers. Wangari's letters soon made words, and her words made sentences. She learned how numbers could be added and subtracted, multiplied and divided. Animals and plants, she discovered, were like human beings in many ways. They needed air, water, and nourishment too. When Wangari finished elementary school, she was 11 years old. Her mind was like a seed, rooted in rich soil, ready to grow. She enjoyed learning. She wanted to learn more, didn't she? Wangari wanted to continue her education, but to do so, she would have to leave her village and move to the capital city of Nairobi. Wangari had never been farther than her valley's ridge. She was scared. So her school only went to elementary school, and now she'll have to go to a whole new town to get any more education. It's a big deal too, isn't it? To have to leave your home to go past elementary school. Go, her mother said. She picked up a handful of earth and placed it gently into her daughter's hand. Where you go, we go. Wangari was sad to leave, but she knew that what her mother said was true. Wherever Wangari went, so went her family, her village, and her Kikuyu ways. She kissed her family and said goodbye to the magumo tree, remembering her promise always to protect it. Wangari's new life in the city amazed her. Skyscrapers towered above her head, not trees. People rushed through the streets like river water over stones. At school, she lived with other girls like her, all trying to weave their village customs with the new city ones. At night, when the girls slept, Wangari dreamed of home and the sweet figs of the magumu tree. Her dreams reminded her to honor the Kikuyu tradition of respecting all living things. Wangari was an excellent student, and science became her favorite subject. She especially loved studying living things. Air, she learned, was made from two molecules of oxygen bonded together. Bodies were made up of cells. Leaves changed color because of photosynthesis. Sounds like some things we've learned. As graduation neared, Wangari told her friends she wanted to become a biologist. Not many Native women have become scientists, they told her. I will, she said. Wangari would have to travel halfway around the world to the United States to study biology. She'd never left Kenya and had little money, but with her teacher's help, she won a scholarship to a college in Kansas. America was very different from Kenya. In college, many of Wangari's science professors were women. From them, she learned that a woman could do anything she wanted to, even if it hadn't been done before. While Wangari discovered how molecules move under a microscope lens and how cells divide in petri dishes, she also found her strength as a woman scientist. After she graduated from college, Wangari traveled to Pennsylvania to continue her studies. Letters from home told Wangari about changes in Kenya. The people had elected a Kikuyu president, Jomo Kenyatta. Proud of her country and proud to be Kikuyu, Wangari decided to return home to Kenya to help her people. America had changed Wangari. She had discovered a spirit of possibility and freedom that she wanted to share with Kenyan women. She accepted a job teaching at the University of Nairobi. Not many women were professors then, and even fewer taught science. Wangari led the way for other women and girls. She worked for equal rights so that female scientists would be treated with the same respect as male scientists. Kind of like Sojourner Truth. Remember Sojourner Truth's speech, "Ain't I a woman?" And she said, "I can do everything a man can do." This kind of reminds me of her. Wangari watched sadly as her government sold more and more land to big foreign companies that cut down forest for timber and to clear land for coffee plantations. Native trees such as cedar and acacia vanished. Without trees, the birds had no place to nest. Monkeys lost their swings. Tired mothers walked miles for firewood. When Wangari visited her village, she saw that the Kikuyu custom of not chopping down the magumo trees had been lost. No longer held in place by tree roots, the soil streamed into the rivers. What we call that? Weathering and erosion, right? The tree roots aren't holding the soil, so it's washing away into the rivers. The water that had been used to grow maize, bananas, and sweet potatoes turned to mud and dried up. Many families went hungry. Wangari could not bear to think of the land being destroyed. Now married and the mother of 3 children, she worried about what would happen to all the mothers and children who depended on the land. "We must do something," Wangari said. Wangari had an idea as small as a seed, but as tall as a tree that reaches for the sky. "Harabi, let's work together," she said to her countrywomen, mothers like her. Countrywomen, mothers like her. Wangari dug deep into the soil, a seedling by her side. "We must plant trees." Many women listened. Many planted seedlings. Some men laughed and sneered. Planting trees was women's work, they said. Others complained that Wangari was too outspoken, with too many opinions and too much education for a woman. Wangari refused to listen to those who criticized her. Instead, she told them, "Those trees you're cutting down today were not planted by you, but those who came before. You must plant trees that will benefit the community to come. Like a seedling with sun, good soil, and abundant rain, the roots of our future will bury themselves in the ground, and a canopy of hope will reach the sky." Wangari traveled to villages, towns, and cities with saplings and seeds, shovels, and hoes. At each place she went, women planted rows of trees that looked like green belts across the land. Because of this, they started calling themselves the Green Belt Movement. We might not change the big world, but we can change the landscape of the forest, she said. One tree turned to 10, 10 to 100, 100 to 1 million, all the way up to 30 million planted trees. That's a lot of trees, isn't it? Kenya grew green again. Birds nested in new trees. Monkeys swung on branches. Rivers filled with clean water. Wild figs grew heavy in the Mugumu branches. Mothers fed their children maize, banana, and sweet potatoes until they could eat no more. Wangari continued to fight for her cause, planting trees and helping village women. She traveled to many places to spread her message and to guide people to take care of the land. She earned the nickname Mama Miti, or Mother of Trees. In 2004, she won the Nobel Peace Prize for her environmental work and her dedication to women's rights. She continued planting trees until her death in 2011. Today, people all over the world remember her and continue her great work. Because of Wangari, those who carry on her work can envision a clean, safe environment for all. Wangari sounds like a pretty amazing person, doesn't she? It's awesome that she planted all those trees and helped her country out so well. Okay, we'll read that story a couple more times this week. Let me end today with our spelling list. I'll be honest with you, as I'm recording this, this spelling test would be on June 4th. I'm not sure if you'll get to take it or not, but I'm going to go ahead and plan this week like you're going to have a spelling test on Friday. So we're going to go ahead and look at our words and practice them. And if you don't have a spelling test, you won't be too sad, will you? But we're going to practice these words anyway. Now, notice all these words either end in L-E, E-L, or A-L. Every one of them end in that, like that. E-L-L-E or A-L. So you got to remember which words end in which way. And that's how I'll set up your spelling practices for this week. Let's read these words, and then I'll let you do a spelling practice today. And we're also going to do some little grammar reviews. You'll see it assigned. They're pretty easy. So let's read our spelling list, and I'll let you get started. Retitle, towel, battle, coastal, metal, simple, eagle, special, total, trouble, nickel, gentle, barrel, model, untangle, ankle, marvel, juggle, squirrel, riddle, signal, fossil, quarrel, and article. So these are the spelling words you'll be working with this week, and that you'll probably have a test on Friday, okay? All right, we'll get to learning today. Be like Wangari. Be like that seed that wants to grow. I'll talk to you tomorrow.